Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying the show, do me one big favor and leave us that 5-star rating and review. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to my man, Pankaj Sharma. Pankaj Sharma is a second-generation multifamily owner and operator with over 20 years' experience in the field. Now, his current personal portfolio consists of 2,000 units in 5 major cities in eastern Pennsylvania. His latest deal closed in July of 2019 when his company purchased a $50 million fixer-upper in Harrisburg, which is where the state capital is. Now, he also recently started his Sharma's Karma YouTube channel, and he also hosts KarmaCast interviews that can be found on various platforms like iTunes and Spotify. Let's welcome to the show, Pankaj Sharma.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on, and there are so many great things that I want to talk to you about. But why don't you take 1 minute and describe yourself in your own words?
I'm an owner-operator, basically, so we're hands-on. My day-to-day isn't always looking at deals as much as it is managing the portfolio, managing 40 plus employees and projects going on in all these different cities, and managing an organization basically, which is it's crazy sometimes, but it's good. It's good.
And you've been doing this for a while. So second generation, right? So you kind of have come into this, sounds like, whether it be your parents or your father, you've kind of come into the business. Was this always what you were doing, or did you kind of pivot after earlier careers?
Yeah, this is the last thing I wanted to do when growing up, because my father bought his first deal when I was 10 years old. He bought a no money down deal got the owner financing, and he didn't have a clue about the business. And but he took that 54 units or 52 units. He added 2 units to the property. He gave $90K down, $90,000 down, and he borrowed that basically. He didn't even have the money or the knowledge and the experience. And so I was at 12 years old painting apartments, cutting grass, seeing all the stuff, and it just wasn't attractive to me from that perspective. As I got older and I started, learning more about investment side of things and that, and the whole, business stuff, I was in my element more so when I got more into entrepreneur side rather than the property management side of being like the worker, being the employee, and it might had a big shift, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do until, but it's been over 20 years that I really kind of dedicated myself to it. And when I say dedicated, it was not even a full-on dedication. It was more so like just having enough, having a small portfolio initially that I could manage, but at the same time be like semi-retired. But now it's, full-time in the game.
So you didn't want to really jump into it directly. So what did you do kind of, after 10 years? What were you doing before you kind of started really focusing on building your portfolio?
So right before I came back into the business, I was in California at the time, and I was doing this training at this place called Agape in California. You ever seen the movie The Secret?
I'm familiar with the book. I haven't seen the movie.
There's one African-American in the movie, Dr. Michael. So he's the one who founded Agape International Spiritual Center. So I was over there doing the 2-year training. And but once that was complete, then and I thought I was going to be I was more inclined to some kind of like spiritual calling, I felt, amongst other things. But I went back to college. I got a degree in communication studies. I was originally an engineering student. I've done a lot of things. I've worn a lot of different hats. It gets kind of crazy, my story. But the latter end is I kind of came back from California, from Los Angeles, got married, and got back into business. We had just bought a foreclosed property at the time. It was a 96-unit high-rise building in a city called Pottstown that was really distressed city as well, really distressed property. I mean, out of the 96 units, only 20 of the units were occupied, and there was a shooting in the property, you know, about a month or two before we acquired the property. So it was really, we got it real cheap. We got that property $2 million cash, and today that property is worth over, you know, it, we added 60 units in there too. So when we took it from 96 units to 156 units, right? And today at 85,000 a unit, you can do the math easily. You know, that's being conservative. You know, at a very conservative price, you know, it's worth over 10 million easy.
Wow, that's
It's just
amazing.
within 20 years, and
Right.
it's, you know, and we were able to pay that property off.
So your strategy is more kind of buy and hold, really. So hold
Yeah,
long term. And I know some of the earlier deals, your father and you were doing the deals really by yourself. Is that still the case? You kind of work primarily with your own capital, buy, renovate, and hold on to these assets.
yeah.
That's awesome, man. So in your bio, I mentioned a $50 million fixer upper, which is a pretty expensive fixer upper. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So this last deal, we purchased 820 some units in Harrisburg, 5 properties deal, and it was one owner. And the reason we got the deal is because we were the only ones that were willing to buy the whole deal. Other people were interested in 4 out of 5 of the properties, but the fifth property nobody wanted to deal with is one high rise, and it wasn't much competition. And like, you know, it's really hard to finance something that's been so distressed and so you know, run down, and didn't have a very strong tenant base. It didn't have a whole lot going for it. But we've become, you know, especially after this deal, we've become really good at being able to, you know, go in and change the property real fast, at least to the point where making it profitable. We're at 93% plus occupancy or all around, all across the board already. And we had to clean up a lot of riffraff. We had to, you know, so I don't want to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Take out the trash. We had to take out the trash, you know, and and really fix the place up. You know, there was just a lot of stuff going on. So, but anyway, because of our relationship with a broker, this one particular broker from Kislak really knows, you know, what type of properties we're good at, and that's what we kind of do. You know, we take distressed, mismanaged properties that people would be like, no, we're not interested in those properties, and it kind of cuts down on the competition because right now, you know, it's a very competitive type of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
So, and then take that and gradually over a period of time, you know, with a long patient strategy, do the value add, build a tenant base, build the collections, and then create something that's really comes up. You know, I mean, really, you know, like if you look at some, like this is not in comparison to the $2 million deal, but the $2 million deal, like that's multiplied, you know, that's a 5 to 6 times multiplication in value over a 20-year period.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing some pretty big renovations, right? So for those folks who really want to understand, I mean, you're buying distressed assets, right? So distressed are things that are not cash flowing day one. You have some occupancy issues, maybe some tenants who are not paying, some deferred maintenance. So you're really going in buying these distressed assets, going in, renovating them, repositioning the tenant base, and then you've got a nice, newer or updated property that has some strong cash flow. And obviously you're driving up the value of the property with all the work that you're doing.
Well,
Um, you know,
it's a very slow patient process. It's not like we can go in and all of a sudden in a month we are able to do all that kind of work. It's very
yeah.
step, very methodical, very slow and patient.
Talk to me
And
more about the strategy there, because I mean that's one of the big difference with those of us who work with investors, right? We have a
right.
value add strategy, and we're trying to get in, renovate fairly quickly, as quickly as we can in the first couple of years, either refinance or get to the point where we can sell. You guys are doing this over an extended period of time. So what's your business plan on a project like that? What does the time frame look like?
So it's usually cash flowing from the beginning. Usually, you know, if it's not, it's kind of we're getting our bills paid at least, and then we're able to take other income from maybe other properties if necessary, and do the capital expenditures. You know, do the capital improvements. But sometimes it's not necessary. In the Harrisburg deal, we're basically using the same money from the Harrisburg deal now, and we're doing well, and we're cash flowing.
And when you say using the same money, you're saying taking the cash flow and reinvesting that into the property.
Yes, we're using
Got
its
it.
own. We're using its own income. It's not like we have to take a separate loan out, or we've um, and we're paying a very high mortgage. You know, we're paying a very fast mortgage as well. We're paying over over. You know, we refinanced one property that we had bought for less than 5 million, which is now worth probably over 20 million, right? And we were able to take 15 million out of that property because that property was paid off. Put that down and add 5 million of our own cash, so that's 20 million. The other 30 million is financed off the property, 60% of the 50 million.
Yeah, and I
So
think too,
we're
with the
paying
way
both
you're
mortgages. We're paying both mortgages, but that one mortgage at least is paid off by the other property. The $15 million mortgage, we're paying that. That's a 15-year mortgage. So every year we're getting $1 million equity back. And
got
at
it. You're
15
using
years, it'll
that one
become
property to pay off the other property's mortgage. I think too, like for
a portion of it.
Yep. So for folks who are listening to this, I want to make sure you understand kind of the reason you're able to take a strategy like that, because out of the gate, there's more inherent risk, right? If you're taking the current cash flow and investing that right back into the property,
Yeah,
that can work. But if you don't have other income or other cash flowing assets, then you could be over leveraged and you could get, a furnace can go
right.
out or a roof needs to be repaired or some sort of big ticket item can kind of
Big
really
ticket.
wipe you out and set you back. And in this case, you're kind of insulated by your other properties, right? So you're
Yeah,
using
and I have to
other
correct myself
properties
and
for
say that everything is going from that one property because if it wasn't for this refinance of the 50 million, that property is paying back that portion of the mortgage.
mm,
Um, we're able to then use this property is able to cash flow.
yeah. And I love the way that because you're working kind of and on your personal portfolio, you're holding this, you can get more creative in how you stack the capital because you're less concerned with, hey, well, this is a separate group of investors or, have a different partner over here. Because you definitely don't want to get into commingling funds or anything like that. You really start to
Right.
break down some legal issues if you're trying to do that. So, I would say if you're listening to this, if you have the same group of investors, you can look at being creative with the folks who are in a specific portfolio, but if you're not, you really need to make sure that individual property can sustain itself and raise enough capital or have enough capital to do those renovations. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the Harrisburg location. I know some of these properties are not necessarily in Harrisburg, but when you're
They
looking
are.
at an area, okay, they're all in Harrisburg, great. So
The last deal, the 800 units are in Harrisburg.
So talk to me about the market. I mean, what does the market look like, and where do you specifically look for opportunities, or do you factor those things in?
So mostly, like, we don't do a whole lot of studies on like the cities that we see. The deals come to us and we evaluate the deal per se. But Harrisburg, we come to find out, my brother's been there for 10 years. I have a property that I've had there for 3 or 4 years. But in the last decade, we see the improvements and the come up in Harrisburg. It's the state capital, but it's still like in the boonies compared to where we are. And but Cumberland County, which is the county next to it, is one of the fastest growing counties, if not the fastest growing county in Pennsylvania. I heard. I didn't even know this stuff when I bought the deal. I'm finding this stuff afterwards. So I think there's a level of luck and there's a level of grace that comes in as well. Um, and so, but it's. I just found out somebody told me the state capitol is bankrupt, but
Probably.
nevertheless, but one thing about Harrisburg is there's no cranes. They're not building apartments there. I don't see any cranes building apartments. There's only one crane, and it's building like the new district court or something. You got the capital city, you got all the government stuff working there, and you get to really see on a level how dysfunctional the government can be as well. Because like all these properties, we have to use the trash from the government. We can't get like the city of Harrisburg controls the trash in Harrisburg, so we can only go through them. And it's more than we would pay a regular trash company if it was a commercial trash company. So it's got its challenges, but at the same time, um, we bought them at $60,000 a unit. It's just unheard of, you know, workforce housing, and nowadays it's unheard of. It wasn't unheard of, going through up our portfolio, but nowadays, $60,000 a unit in Pennsylvania, we don't see something like that. So we buy them as conservatively as possible so that we know that we can't, we're not over leveraged and we're able to pay our bills. And then that value should come up. That It's not going to drop from that point.
So since you're really focusing on evaluating the deal first and foremost, and then kind of just really figuring out what you can do with your business plan, where you can push rents, things like that, what inputs are you looking at when it comes to demographics or rent projections or things like that? What sources do you look into for your data, and what are some of the, I guess, the key indicators you're seeking?
Right. So it's a different approach because we look at the property, we feel out the property, we look at the neighborhood. It's more of like we see it, we see where we can like we're able to assess it just by walking the property really fast. And then once you look through the leases, you see that you can check out the tenant base, and you can feel like, can I do something here? And because we've been battle tested, so to speak, because we've done like we've worked like Pottstown was the worst of the worst. Like it's just there's nothing going on in Pottstown, and because we survived there 20 years, and we're able to pay and to build and to pay off a mortgage in a city like that, like nothing, it doesn't scare us, unless it's like a really like a D class neighborhood. You can't change the neighborhood, you can change the property. So as long as it's in a good neighborhood, C class or above neighborhood, and the property is C class or above, and we can do it. We can make it work as long as the numbers work. As long as we're able to pay the mortgage and pay our bills, and it's going to cash flow. And because of the base we've already built, we know that we can. Cash flow is not our most important thing. It's important, but it's not our top priority. The top priority is making this thing work, and knowing that over the long period of time that the valuation is going to increase. It's got to definitely pay its bills. And if it can't pay, like, because a lot of times in business, the standard thing of business is not just apartment business, but any business. The first year you don't make money. The second year you break even, and the third year that's when you start making the money. So to be able to start making money from day one is a great thing, and it's a great luxury that apartments a lot of times provide us with. But when you're dealing with some property like this where it's kind of distressed, you might not be making money in the beginning. But at least if you're breaking even, you're doing good initially. On a larger thing, not if you're buying a single family house. Now I'm talking about like a larger. If you got some units here, it's going to build some momentum. You know,
Yeah. I think too, like, when you talked about building momentum and not really being scared because you guys know the track record you have. You've done difficult projects, you've had success. What are some of those key lessons that you've learned that you now know or that you kind of take forward that our listeners could benefit from learning?
I think because of the way we do it, it's because of our hands-on approach, we're able to do what we do. I don't think a management company could come in and do what we do. And that's the difference. That other people who are doing syndication stuff, they got to buy something that's more stabilized, so to speak, so that a management company can run a stabilized asset. But can they take an asset that's distressed? That's my question. I don't know. Maybe they can, but I don't know. That's something I'd be wary of. Can they take an asset that's distressed and turn it around? Do they have that kind of track record? And so we've got that track record of taking something that's distressed and making it profitable.
Why is it harder for a property management company to turn around a distressed asset?
I'm not saying it is or not, but I'm just saying that's the one thing, because they're more so they're able to manage, uh, stabilized properties more so. That's their game, right? And unless maybe there's somebody there that's their forte, that they're being able to do that. And that's my question, really. I'm really saying it as a question, like, can they do that? Have they had that track record? Most property managements, I don't think, and I could be wrong. I'm not like it's not something I've really researched, but I don't think they have that track record to take something that's distressed and turn it around.
Let me ask you differently. Why do you think you've succeeded by being hands-on as opposed to
Right.
just being able to hand it to a third party management?
Because a lot of time, and the other thing is, a property management company they have to deal with the owner for everything. And if the owner is not going to pay for it, the property management, their hands are tied. So here we are. We're going to put the money back in. We're just going to fix what's practical, and we're not going to hold back, because the whole philosophy is, if you love the property, the property will love you. If you put love into the property, because if you're buying something that's distressed, it's neglected. It hasn't been loved. It's been neglected, right? So it's almost like a neglected child, or a neglected an animal maybe, that you nurture it. You got to nurture it. You got to give it that love. And so because that practice and that it's just a part of us to do that. Like, we just got to fix it up. We just got to give it the love, and it comes back, and a lot of times where corporations are involved and numbers are involved and all this stuff, the love isn't involved.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say is like because when you have the love, you're not worried about the cost as much. And I'm not talking cost from a materials and actual renovation. I'm talking about the amount of energy that it takes, to go to a distressed asset for a property management company that gets paid based off of a percentage of rental income. Maybe they're not willing to go and do the extra mile and the things that it takes to just be at the property consistently and seeing the crews and things like that.
And the biggest thing I've learned over the experience is that if you don't pay for it up front, you're going to pay for it later. And when you pay for it later, it's going to come with a late fee. You're going to get your own late fee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to cost more money down the road. There's areas where I didn't pay for something. I pushed it off. I try to find a patch way to do it. I try to find an economical way to do it. I tried this. I paid 3 times more money.
Mm, mm.
I'm talking
Give me an
about a roof.
example. Give me an
Uh,
example of that.
I got the best example. The biggest thing that I've lost the most money on, that high rise building that I told you about, the 96 units, we have a flat roof. And so years ago, somebody gave me a price for over $300,000 to fix that roof. I didn't have the money at the time. And to me at that time, it sounded like it seemed like an outrageous amount of money. I found somebody else that came in with this kind of eco-friendly type of way to do this area, that we can do one area of the roof at a time, and it won't like put you in the red or put you in the black or whatever that color is, the red. And so I gave it a shot, then that didn't work or something, and then this other guy came in and did his thing, and it was even worse.
Oh, wow.
So when I finally went back to the person who gave me the 350, it cost, years later, it cost 500. It cost over $500,000. So last year I spent $566,000 to do a brand new roof from the jump. And now that roof is going to be, trouble free for 20 years plus, but I should have went and got the money. Even though I didn't have the money then, I should have got the money,
Yeah.
or figured out a way to do that, or invested and put the money then, rather than paying $100,000 here, $100,000 here, and then having to pay 500. So I ended up paying, almost maybe $1 million off of something that I could have fixed for $400,000.
300. Right. Right. I think that's a powerful lesson too. And it's funny because, I had a similar experience where, we're trying to be thrifty and trying to be efficient with the capital, and same thing, I ended up paying 3 times as much for something that could have been done right the first time, could
Exactly.
have been done fairly quickly. But instead it dragged out. So it cost me not just money, but a whole lot of time. And I
Right.
think the key lesson that we're talking about here
And headache
is
and mental energy.
not to mention the stress, right? The mental
Yeah.
anxiety and all of that.
Yeah,
And I think the
exactly.
key lesson for me that I took away was, find the right people to do the job who are, they've got the right approach, figure out what it costs and try your best to negotiate that down, right? But get the right people who can do the job. Don't cut corners. Don't go with the cheapest quote. Don't go with the cheapest contractor. Find the people who you're comfortable with, who have the capabilities to execute, and then work within their budget and then ask them, hey, are there some places where we can save a little bit of money, and get their recommendations. But you want to get the right people, first of all, because the
Right.
right people will know where you can, take some breaks or maybe make some modifications versus just getting the guy who's going to be a little bit cheaper, because he may do work that ultimately doesn't work at all. And it will definitely cost you more money if you got to come back and redo it after they do it. So
Right.
great point there.
And then
Pankaj,
also taking over this project. I'm sorry, taking over this project in Harrisburg. You see the guy who's had this for so many years and just patch this, patch that. Now it's going to take me a lot of income and a lot of capital to really do it right. So but
yeah. And even to your point, even on the exit, I mean, your future buyer will want to see that you did a pretty good job taking care of the property. You can command
right.
a higher exit versus, if they look around and just see a bunch of work everywhere. So really good points there. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the family dynamic and how you've built this up, because I know a lot of people look to partner with family members. You kind of started off by saying as a young kid, being at that property, painting and working, you're like, there's no way in the world I want to do this. Obviously, that's changed over the
Yeah.
last, how many ever years.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it's like working with family. Do you guys have
I think that's a
rules? Do
great,
you have dynamics? Talk about
I
that.
think that's a real good question, because it's really, it's like the first generation is they come from nothing and they built up something. And then nobody cared. Nobody talks a lot about the second generation. Like today you're like maybe by the first generation, but your kids are going to come up in this, right? And then the second generation usually scales up and brings things, forward and progresses. In third generation, statistically, they say, and this was years ago when I heard this statistic, loses it, drops it out because they grow up in it. The second generation, we've seen the struggle. We've seen what it takes to come from living in a one-room apartment or studio apartment to now not having to worry about, day-to-day expenses as much, but carrying forward. And so the dynamics with working with like my father per se. So for years ago, like me and my father, we were so, that growing up that, I just like took my one prop rather than being a part of the whole machine, because my father had this machine going where he's just buying property, buying property, buying property. And I just got tired of, you deal with, you buy a lot of headaches when you buy these kind of properties too. So I got tired of it. So that's another reason why I wanted to do something different. So at one point I just had this 199 unit that I ran, and I kind of just lived off of that, and then gradually I started growing up and I started healing with my father, and by healing within myself. And now today I've got mad respect for my father, and we've got a great relationship, and I've got the freedom to, like, I do what I want, basically. Not that I do what I want, but I'm able to make decisions on the fly and implement things and do things without going to him for everything. He just lets me do it now because he's developed that trust and faith in me as well. But it took a long time for me to get there. But even like I said in the beginning, I just said, look, I'm just going to go over here and do my thing. Whereas my brother, he was just there the whole time. So collectively as a family, we have 4,500 units. He's got about 2,500 units, and I have, now 2,000 units. But I was happy with the 1,000 before this deal, and living the life I had, and I didn't want to do this other Harrisburg deal. My father, I did it for him, and he said he wanted me to do it for my kids. So I was cool with the 1,000 units. But my father came to me, this deal, I walked away from this deal. Something didn't feel right at one point. And then the deal came back to us a few months later, and the energy around it changed. The guy was more flexible. He took away the property management. He had his own people working there, which makes it easier for the takeover. Because the property management, when you take over the property, they're just like, see ya. They're gone. You got to start from scratch and build a team and everything. And that's a huge, huge, huge undertaking. So, I've grown up and I've realized that, it's not about what I want all the time. It's about what can I do for what's the right thing to do. And sometimes the right thing is not what's comfortable. But as a result of doing what was uncomfortable, I've grown so much in that short period of time, and it's opened up more opportunities to do other things. And now I'm looking for that next big deal, so to speak. Like after taking on the 800 units and going through, the water being shut down, the phones being shut down, the gas is about to be shut down, whatever was getting shut down, and being able to live through all that, being like, oh, look, that there was a certain, even though it was crazy and stressful, I said to myself, like, this time is never going to come again. So I'm going to enjoy it. It's a ride. It's an adventure. Then when things started settling down, now the drama's gone. Now I'm like, I need some more drama. I need that nice deal. I need that thing. But then I had to realize, like, right now is the time to just be patient. Like my shirt says from Bobby Castro, stack and rack. Save up that money, stack and rack, and get ready.
No, listen, man, I love it. And I picked up on a couple of things. You kind of talked about, family and really some of your goals, right? And I think it's really interesting because you've seen your father struggle in building a portfolio and what it took, and not really probably being as sophisticated with the systems and the approaches starting out, just doing whatever it took, right, to get these deals done. And, as you stepped away, you talked about being on you didn't say it like this, but my interpretation was you kind of went on a bit of a spiritual journey, right? Kind of went out west to California, really focusing a little bit more on kind of spirituality, and then realized that, there was something in that relationship that I don't want to say had to repair, but there was a moment where you had to reconcile and say, hey,
I
listen.
did have to repair, yeah.
Yeah. So,
You're right.
it's interesting hearing that because, I think ultimately what many of us turn to real estate for, we can talk about financial freedom or, passive income and those things, but the holy grail for many of us is to create generational wealth. And for you, coming as a second generation person. For those that don't know, Pankaj and I have joked because my brother-in-law actually has the same exact name. And, I watched my wife's family, kind of that immigrant story coming to this country, literally six of them, five or six of them in a one bedroom,
So
house.
if they have a Sharma as the last name, then we're kind of related, John.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of y'all. But, watching that story and similar, some similarities to my own story. And I think many of us strive to create something that we can provide to our kids, and hopefully our kids provide it to their kids. And like you said, there's some perils there that maybe are unintended, and there can be some strife or some a little bit of disconnect in the way our parents want to see that success played out or the path they want you to take. And, I think the big takeaway for me is you kind of have to get on the same page. And sometimes that means humility for some folks. And many times it's the younger ones who have to come and represent and just, make amends with things. But I think uh, trying to create that is such a beautiful thing because it's easy to step away and do your own thing and just say, hey, you know what? I don't need this. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to be X. But to actually engage and be a part of something that you can grow and pass on to your kids or get them involved early on, it can be very powerful in creating generational wealth. So I know I kind of said a lot of stuff there, but as you look at this and you've gone through your journey from the young man, the teenager who was growing up in the business, who didn't want to be a part of it, to recognizing that this could create a lifestyle that was good for you, to, more recently having a conversation with your father who saw this last building as an opportunity for you to pass it on to your children and create generational wealth for them. How has your mentality and your approach shifted through the years and how you approach it, the way you see real estate, and kind of how you plan on engaging your children and bringing them involved and making them a part of it?
So my children, I have two boys. They're 17 and 15. And so 2 years ago, when my 17-year-old was about 15 years old, he went to the high-rise building during the summers and was started with the janitors, with the cleaning people, with the people who clean the building, and started working from the bottom up, because that way they'll understand what other people. Because like I painted apartments, I've done a lot of things, I've managed the property, I've done taken the tenant calls. So I have a different type of relationship with the people in my office because I've done a lot of the things that they've done. I haven't was never a full-time maintenance, but I did like some maintenance on the side and stuff like that. And so we want to see them experience what everybody else is experiencing. So and they're good with that. They're like they enjoy, like, some of us kids like, I'm not going to clean that building or clean that high rise or clean somebody pissing in this fire escape or wherever, not the fire escape, but the side steps or something like that, the fire exit. And so by doing that from the ground up, then they'll start to get the same experience that I got from the ground up, and they'll have a different perspective. Now we really see it as a long game, that this is a long, patient game, the way we play it. And I'm seeing with my own eyes how you can take 90,000 and today worth, 300 to 400 million, over a 40-year span with real estate. That's what happened. My father didn't do this for himself, really. He did it for the future generation, because he was an engineer when he came here, and he saw that he was constant. When they wanted to lay off people, the first people they'd lay off were the people that were, what I use the word minorities, and so somebody asked him to get into a business, and he was not into thinking like a business person. He's like, my father was never good at business, so he had the mindset. Luckily, they talked him into getting at 7-Eleven, and luckily he started getting the business mindset. And then luckily one day, somebody said to him, a friend of his had a triplex, and he was living in the triplex. He was house hacking, and he said, "See, these guys are paying my mortgage. I'm living free." That's when the light bulb went on in his head. But he said, "I'm not going to do it with houses. I'm going to do it with apartments." And so he went for it. He didn't know what he was doing, but he went for it. But he wanted to build something for the future. And finally, the kids, me and my brother, there's only two of us, we're full in on this whole thing. And he's so, appreciative, because a lot of people, we end up a lot of times buying assets that are passed down to the next generation. They don't want it, so they just sell it.
Man, I think that's powerful, man, for so many reasons. But I think ultimately, as we talk about generational wealth, there's the money side of it, but there's the connections, and the fact that There are experiences that you're sharing from what your father went through to what you went through to what you're putting your kids through. It's out of love. It's out of appreciation. It's out of respect. And it's kind of earning your stripes, right? In the family business, it's coming in, knowing that they've built up the credibility and they're prepared, whether they decide to follow that pathway or not, they can respect it. They understand the effort, the work, the time it took to kind of build and create, and they can take that and not necessarily be entitled, but really understand how to build and how to grow. And I think ultimately for anyone listening, that's what we want to get to, right? The goal is to build generational wealth where our children, our children's children have the freedom to not really worry about money and to figure out how else they can impact the world, what else they can do to give back. With that said, I do want to ask, what are some of the other things you're passionate about, outside of real estate? What are some other things that you're interested in, that you're passionate about? I know you and I are both slated to speak at an event, and I look forward to meeting and talking to you more important. But just give our audience just a little bit more context to the things that are important in your life.
So the spiritual calling piece that I talked about in the beginning is still a big part of, my makeup. And it really, my spiritual connection fulfills my business, and my business helps me to grow spiritually as well. So they both feed each other. And now it's like there's a point where I felt like you either had to do one or the other. Now I realize that there is no one or the other. There's only one. There's like both of them can integrate together, and that I see that a large part of our success as a family comes from our culture, and it's tied to our spirituality as well, of being of not particularly any particular religion, or so to speak, but just simple human practices of the golden rule and looking out for people and giving your best, and those just principles of living are so crucial to success. And I think that's really helped us grow. And not only that, when my father opened up a temple years ago, that's when the business really started growing and expanding. So I really see how like the thing of like people that give and not just living for themselves, but are living for others and living to build community and to give back to the community. Because as investors, we're not just looking at our ROI, we're investing in the community. We're creating a place that may be unsafe, right? A lot of times, like the buildings we've taken over, they're unsafe. People are getting shot, people are getting killed. There's all this stuff going on. And here we are bringing in some safety and security and some manageability for people. So we're doing that service as well to the community, to help lift up a community and to create a place that people can live and live in peace, and in harmony. So yeah, my passion is spiritual growth, spiritual, rising, consciousness and that thing, and community and building community and realizing you got to live to give, and sharing inspiration also, like living an inspirational life, not just about me, what I can get, but what can I give?
No, I love it. Pankaj, this has been really good. I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about your journey and kind of the role spirituality plays in pushing not just yourself forward, but helping others as well. Let's move on to our bullseye round. You ready? How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success?
No, I failed so many times. I failed forward. And, I think the main thing in failure is understanding, they say you fail a lot in order to really succeed, and each millionaire fails so many times. And I've tried so many different entrepreneurial things trying to not do the real estate, right? So I really can appreciate the stability that I get from the real estate practice as well. But one thing failure teaches you that, everything is temporary, that whatever you're going through, this too shall pass, and to face your fears and to take the risks and go for it.
What book have you gifted or recommended the most in the last year?
The book that I love that I've had for over 20 years is like my Bible. It's called Creating Money. It's a spiritual book. It's a book called Creating Money by Sanaya Roman. I go back to it every few years.
Give me a digital or mobile resource that you recommend for others.
Sharma's Karma. Karma Cat. Let me see. Yeah, I'll just leave it there right now. Like, and the Casmi show, right? Casmi Capital.
Right. All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Meditation.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Oh, I mean, everybody who's been in the game for a long time said they should have bought more. You know, now it's too late, but you know, I should have bought a whole lot more. You know, those deals that I was just like, you know, we could have came up just a little bit and got that deal. We could have went gangbusters, but you know, it is what it is. I'm happy where I'm at.
What's one thing, you know, now that you wish you knew just 12 months ago?
You know, the last few months, everybody was talking about is, well, are we going to get a recession? Are we going to get a recession? And I'm going to tell you right now, the door is open. We are in the recession. If you haven't gotten the news yet, let me give you the broadcast. No more looking at take all the charts and the graphs and all that stuff and burn that crap, you know, because it's here. And I felt it coming. And Stephanie, this is the open door. And we're in a very uncertain time. And it can be scary. And so right now, you know, most important thing is right here, right now. What's going on, you know, and to be calm, to, you know, to have that sense of support that life is supporting you, that life is for you, it's not against you, you know, to be practical, to be safe, but at the same time, like, don't feed the fear, feed the faith.
What are you curious about right now?
You know what I'm really curious about is, you know, this, I wouldn't really say this publicly, but I'm gonna be honest with you, since you're asking me. I'm really curious, like I'm getting to a level in my meditations where like I'm really experiencing this otherworldness, so to speak, or this sense of depth of that everything's okay, that there's this being within me that is me, that is right here, right now. And I'm really curious to see where this is gonna go. That like this new level that I'm reaching within myself, I'm really curious to see how this comes forth and where it's going to go from here. You know,
that's awesome. It's when you talk to people who meditate often and truly commit to it, you hear people talk about that. So it's interesting to hear you share that as well. It's just really reaching that. It's not even inner peace. It's just enlightenment, right? Of understanding who you are, being comfortable with it, and kind of elevating to a different space mentally. So it's really interesting to hear you say that. It's something we're working on, you know, is trying to figure out how to.
Me personally, I grew up feeling very insecure. Like the insecure energy was there for a big part of my life. And now as I'm getting to a place where I'm feeling more and more, the word that comes to me is safe within myself and safe in this world. For a big part of me, like I'll share this, you know, I'll just be candid. For a big part of me, like when people die and pass away, I'd be like feeling jealous, like they got out of here, like, you know, and it's crazy, but like, this is, you know, I just, you know, life is amazing and it's wonderful, but it's also challenging. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes on living here on this planet that I'm just like, so sometimes I feel so done with, you know, but getting, you know, but really now getting that sense of like, you know, of safety, security, of you're taken care of, and not to be so like stressed over it, or not feeding the fear, or understanding this energy that there's a frequency, like insecurity is like a frequency. And sometimes you might even, people who have it, they don't even know that they have it, you know. And people who have more money, if you have insecurity, you can be even more insecure, because it can money just is more, you know, can enhance whatever's there, you know. And so if a person's insecure, they can be even more insecure with more money. I've had times in my life where I had less money, but I was more peace. I had times in my life where I had more money than I knew what to do with, and I was so insecure, stressed.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's something that we holistically just, you know, you don't hear people really talk about that. And you know, it starts to extend beyond just spirituality and talk a little bit more about mental health, right? In a way that, and not like super far out there, but just understanding that, you know, we all go through our challenges on a daily basis, you know, things that, and especially from an outsider standpoint, outsiders could easily look at it and say, dude, what are you upset about? What are you concerned about? What are you insecure about? You got X amount of dollars, you got this huge real estate portfolio, whatever. And they don't necessarily have the same empathy, but, you know, as individuals, it really doesn't matter what you have in your bank account. You know, we all have our fears, our concerns, our stresses, our anxieties.
J. Cole has a line in one of his songs, I think it's Middle Child or something, saying to just understand that the money won't heal the pain. Mm-hmm. You know, and that like all my life, I thought once I got to a certain point with having the money, that everything would be cool and kosher and cool. But, you know, that's just the beginning. There's struggles in life, but the biggest struggle you have, if you're self-aware, is with yourself.
No, man, you hit it right on the head. So good point there. Can't really transition this, but maybe I'll try anyway, man.
It's a good podcast, man. I'll tell you, I like this podcast. It's some good stuff. I hear a lot
appreciate it.
I'm like, I don't hear no stuff like this. Hold on.
Well, that's all you. I mean, you're the one that's opening up, so I appreciate it. So speaking of that, I know you're out in Pennsylvania. Where exactly do you live?
Spring City. I live
Spring City.
Spring City.
All right.
Place, King of Prussia is a big place that's close by.
So give me the best place to grab a bite to eat next time we're in that area.
My house. My wife can cook. And I have to give a shout out to my wife too, because I get into these podcasts, I start talking to myself, but my wife joined the business a couple of years ago, and every day I'm amazed at the stuff she does. She's not like a big book reader or anything like that, but she's got this. I'll take her over an MBA or a PhD any day. The gift that she has, and the practical wisdom of just seeing things and calling people out and talking to people and just addressing things so directly, it's amazing. So having her join my side and join my team a couple years ago, and really I wouldn't be able to do the things I'm doing without her.
What's your wife's name?
Ruby.
So shout out to Ruby for helping to make the business run. We know that you need a powerful woman behind you to keep this thing running smooth, and for the women, it's great to have a supportive man as well. So, I mean, having that spouse who's on board and can jump in and add value.
I'm sitting in Spring City today. She's going to Harrisburg, which is an hour and 20-minute drive.
Wow. Okay. There you go. Appreciate that. So listen, I mean, you gave us so much to talk about, and I really appreciate the value you shared. One, from learning more about kind of your upbringing, the work your father put in to kind of really start the real estate business, the spiritual journey you've been on to get it back into the business, to grow that, the challenges that you faced, really that understanding of, hey, let's not try to make poor decisions today that end up costing us more money down the road. I think that was a really big insight for us. And then just, again, coming back to what it takes to create generational wealth and kind of balance the spirituality and generational wealth. So those are some of my key takeaways from our conversation. For our listeners who want to learn more about you, want to learn more about, how to invest in multifamily and real estate the way you and your family are doing it. I know we've talked about your YouTube channel. Where can they get more information, and how can they get in touch with you?
On Instagram, we're S as in Sam, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, Properties Investment. Properties plural, investment is the IG. And then YouTube, look up Sharma's Karma. We just started a channel a few months back. We're just little by little putting stuff up. And those are two ways, you can DM me from Instagram, or check out the YouTube channel and subscribe. So I just want to say that, this is, business is practical. If you take care of the property will take care of you.
No, I appreciate it. Pankaj, this has been great. I appreciate you coming on today, being so open with our guests, with our listeners, and great information. We look forward to staying in touch and building on our connection, man. You take care, okay?
I don't have to do any more podcasts now. I can just say, just listen to one with John. I don't have to do it anymore. I'm done.
There you go, man. There you go. All right, take care, okay? We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks. Bye-bye.